Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer, 40K podcast. And today we're talking about the Armageddon Steel Legion. It's going to be a very cool episode. Joining me for this one, I got my dear friend Christian for the last time reporting for duty. No, you're doubling down, you son of a bitch. You're going more. This is your second time.
Yeah, I'm going to be on twice as many times this time.
Oh man, that's twice more than we all deserve, but here we are. We also got Gerald. Welcome, buddy.
Christian's just too good for this sinful podcast.
Not too good. I consider the time I give as a donation to the needy.
Oh,
a donation. I've heard you call me a charity event before.
It's for tax purposes. Don't worry.
We are so honored for your donation of your time.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's going to be a fun episode. This was an episode I was kind of familiar with. You know, the Steel Legion kind of had some rough ideas, but when I was writing the notes and stuff, I kind of fell in love with a lot of different things about them. So I'm excited to share with you guys. But before we get to it, let's do some quick housekeeping. We're doing a Discord event right now. If you're listening live, you know, maybe by the time the podcast is out, the contest might still be going. I think it will be. But there are 4 copies of Tabletop Simulator up for grabs. And it's just a simple trivia contest, and it's Lorehammer themed. Like Christian, today, the question was, during the Eternal Horizon RPG, which character flipped a tank, killing the inhabitants that you're supposed to rescue?
Are you able to give the answer on air here, or is that still ongoing in the Discord? Are you gonna?
I think we'll be fine. I think this one's up. It was you. I don't remember your character's name, but I remember you doing it to those poor people. What a horrible way to die. But
I don't remember doing that. It must have been in a fit of some kind of rage or something. I would never harm innocents.
Way too much space cocaine
without good reason.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, a lot of fun. The questions are pretty memey, so go check that out. And like I said, you can then play Tabletop Simulator, which means you can then play Warhammer on there with people on the Discord. So that's pretty cool.
Fun times. And if you join the Patreon for the lowest tier of $2.50 USD, you get ad-free version of the show on Spotify. So that's already a bonus. And for the $5 tier, you get access to the live stream where you get to see our faces and I get to do stupid shit all the time. Yay. Okay.
Yeah, perfect. You went from full face mask to now starting a dancing TikTok channel, and it escalated quickly too. And I like that about that.
Too bad he started his TikTok on the day
because he told me to take my mask off.
Yeah. And if you join the Patreon and join our live show, you can also be in the chat room here with us and be part of the show. Not only in the chat room, and you maybe have your questions answered live on air, and also communicate with our wonderful members, but you also can call in at the end of the show.
Yeah, we love those, man. Those are a lot of fun. Sometimes, you know, we try to keep the episodes like 2.5 hours tops. Sometimes we go a little longer. Sometimes we kind of go around the 2-hour mark. But, you know, sometimes we don't get to all the call-ins, but we definitely try and we love them. Yeah, one more quick thing before we get to the episode. Last episode, I dropped out halfway through. The Panama Quality Island internet finally got the best of me, like 45 episodes in. I dropped out.
So is there a chance of that happening again? Should we be
on
edge?
No, I got a message the next morning saying that they were doing line work or something on the lines. But anyways, you know, it was pleasantly surprising that those two just carried on talking like I wasn't even there. You could barely even tell at all. Even
we try to ignore you most of the time, to be honest.
Yeah, well, they're already doing like some type of rebellion over there, calling it Court Hammer, calling it all types of things. So
they literally just like hijack the show. One day, Mark will just disappear, and people are going to ask a lot of questions about what happened to him. The show will go on, and just Mark will be gone.
He's just sitting on his golden
Was it-
throne waiting for his 1,000th daily patrons. It's okay.
Keeping him alive.
No, if anything, I need to be wired into the machine. That's the direction I'm going. 5
Permanently.
times.
Yeah, that's my, hey, that's my job now.
Oh yeah. So yeah, no, but they did a great job hosting, and they finished off the Fulgrim episode. There's things I wish I would have been able to say on that end of that series, but sometimes things get lost to the warp. So what do you do about it? You move on with your life and never talk about the Emperor's children again.
That might be one
Probably for the
response
best.
Mhm. All right. Today, Armageddon Steel Legion. The Armageddon Steel Legion is the military regimentarum of the Astra Militarum that fights as the mechanized infantry alongside Chimera armored personnel carriers in defense of the strategically located Imperial hive world of the Armageddon and its surrounding allied star systems of the Armageddon sector. Armageddon, located in the Segmentum Solar, was a planet blighted by and poisoned by millennia of heavy industrial output, though it was also a major manufacturing center. That's kind of a quick little thought on them. What are your guys' initial thoughts on them? You know, we kind of know this. They're a regiment that lights these mechanized units. We know that they're on Armageddon and Hive worlds. I feel like that is basically all most people would kind of commonly know.
Yeah, I mean, they're a regimen that certainly exists. That's for sure.
They're out there, and they may come for you next.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been
Tell
pretty
us how you
generic
really
to me. Yeah, they've always been pretty generic to me. Like they're cool. They're all right. They're you know, like what do you say about the color beige? It's just like it's the color beige. What do you want?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Most of my
Okay, fine.
most of my experience with them is from the Hell's Reach movie, and I had mistaken them entirely for Cadians because that's what they looked like from like a first glance
Generic.
perspective. But saw a couple of lore, saw a couple of lore tubers who were mostly talking about them for the memes. Their helmets are pretty cool, but there was like one glaring issue, which I think is what second or third edition that they're brought up and with their model line, but we'll talk about that later near the end of the episode so we don't get immediately demonetized.
Okay, well, let me see if I can win you boys over. Let me start by painting you a little picture here. Always close your eyes, and when you're picturing them in the muddy trenches, their beige outfits now more brown and beige because of the muds. Think of the words resilient, disciplined, and relentless, and of course mechanized infantry. Tanks going over the muddy tracks above them. Boom! Yeah, lots of fun. Very fun times to be in the muddy pits with tank driving above you.
Not doing much to win me over here.
Okay, well,
The only
just
thing
you
that
wait, I'll get you.
the only thing that
yet.
just comes to mind is Cadia Stuns.
Nope, that's a different regiment. And you dishonor the Steel Legion even by saying that on Armageddon. I'll have you know. Let me start by dipping your toes into the world of Armageddon then, since my little teaser didn't win you over. So, Armageddon, an Imperial hive and an industrial world in the Segmentum Solar, has been the site of some of the Imperium's most relentless conflicts, including the chaos-driven First War for Armageddon and the devastating Orc-led Second and Third Wars under Warlord Ghazghkull Thraka. This world is a vital industrial hub, supporting countless nearby systems with its massive output. Armageddon is known to produce its own patterns of numerous weapons and vehicles. That'll come up a lot in this episode. Centuries of ceaseless production has left Armageddon's surface as a desolate wasteland where polluted oceans and ash-choked skies dominate. Its hive cities, towering archegollies that house the human population and serve as industrial centers, are the only habitable zones. Food must be imported, and clean air and water are scarce commodities, underscoring the planet's grim resilience. The harsh conditions have forged the Astra Militarum's Armageddon Steel Legion into disciplined mechanized warriors, adept at navigating inhospitable terrain in the armored vehicles. The main continent of Armageddon split into Armageddon Prime and Armageddon Secundus by the Equatorial Jungle, serves as the heart of its wars. These continents, covered in ash wastes from millennia, have cities like Hellsreach, Infernus, and Hades, which became strategic locations during the planet's epic battles. Each city stands as a testament to unyielding spirit of Armageddon's defenders. The birth of the Sicatrix Maledictum, a galaxy-wide storm, has further transformed Armageddon into nightmarish battlefield overrun by demonic forces of Khorne, Tzeentch. And despite this, the Steel Legion continues to hold the line, relentless in their determination. Wow.
You know, I do find Armageddon, often I do default mentally to like just that desert wasteland and like hive cities, but I did not know that they had oceans, and I did know about the equatorial forest, but I often forget about it, which is, or jungle, which is are cool features that make it more than just Tatooine. Like there's
Sure,
other interesting features too.
The beige looks great in the against the jungle backdrop. I'm telling you.
Yeah, perfect camouflage.
Yeah. Couple things I like about this planet is it's an industrial world. They just like making things, and they have their own things that they're constantly making. And they're actually a part of the Armageddon sector, and they're shipping out to that. There's planets shipping in, like we mentioned, food being shipped in. There's a bunch of big hives on the planet too, and we'll talk about populating such places and maybe repopulating such places. So I don't think they're just trading food and tanks back and forth. There's also a huge flow of population coming and leaving this planet just due to what happens.
I love populating places. Some say it's a one-man job for me.
Yeah, you're doing well. You're on the scoreboard.
Behind what's going on.
So one thing that makes Armageddon so vital to the Imperium is its industrial output. It's in the solar segmentum, so it's like, you know, neighbors to Terra and stuff. It's in that same spot, which, you know, we don't have a lot of planets there oftentimes.
Yeah. And that means anything bad happening on Armageddon, it obviously means it's getting closer to Terra, so it's pretty vital.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to start off by reading some regimental history. Now that we kind of got a little idea of the planet, you know, it's a desert world, has a little jungle rim. There's some oceans. It's spotted in a couple massive hives, and they just build stuff. That's their vibe.
I mean, I like how all the hives are called Hellsreach, Hades, Infernus. What does this let you know about the kind of planet that you're living on that's also called Armageddon?
No, it just translates poorly, I'm sure. In Armageddon, it sounds better, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's supposed to mean peaceful and the city of love and Utopia town.
Warm.
Warm. Yeah.
Like the Folka Fenrica from Fenris. It just translates poorly into Low Gothic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's start off this regimental history with a quote, because we are stealing this from Adeptus Ridiculous. Please cut that out in editing. We do not wither. Sorry. We do not wither before the flames of war, for our resolve is like steel and only hardens with heat. Do not let these new foes forget who we are. Show them our strength and our unbending fury. Colonel McCallion during the Third War for Armageddon.
Oh, and Gerald,
The regiments
master
of
of
the
many
Astra-
voices over there.
Ah, it's Dankeschön.
That's his German. Yep. Thank you.
I'm not going to go there. The regiments of the Astra Militarum, born from the iron will of countless worlds, are forged through trials unlike any other. Their structure is diverse. Warriors ride upon beasts or man mighty war machines. Yet there is one constant that binds them all, an unwavering commitment to the victory, no matter the odds. Some regiments march on foot, while others soar through the skies or ride armored behemoths across the battlefield. From the humblest of beginnings to the elite forces of the Imperial each soldier stands relentless in the face of the enemy. In the vast expanse of the Imperium, mechanized infantry is a rarity. The immense resources required to equip and maintain these war machines often elude even the most well prepared planetary governors and commanders. The production of armored vehicles, such as the iconic Chimera, necessitates a partnership with the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose tech priests provide the machines with life and purpose in battle. Among the few who wield this power, the Steel Legions of Armageddon stand as the most formidable, born from the hive world, scarred by ceaseless conflict and pollution. They are the embodiment of resilience. Armageddon's factories churn out these formidable transports in numbers unmatched across the Imperium. Their regiments are mobile, swift, and unyielding, capable of overrunning the enemy with relentless force. The Steel Legions have earned their moniker through the years of relentless engagement, using their chimeras to sweep across the battlefield and crush all opposition underfoot.
Or track.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I love. They just drive a tank into the middle of something and then, run it, crush it. All the tank traps, all the plows and stuff that crush everything else. And then all the men just jump out, hell guns ablaze. Yeah, I think it's very cool. It reminds me of kind of the Tau way of warfare that I kind of really like, where they're always hopping out of their devilfish transports and being on the desert planet. Tan, beige again. It's all lining up. Maybe this is what happened.
Are you
I don't like these guys. I like
a connection?
Tau.
It was the Tau all along.
Yeah. No, just
Dun, dun, dun.
Unrelated, I'm sure. But something I enjoyed.
The power of the weave compels this one. The people of Armageddon know nothing but war. The planet's ash-choked atmosphere is a lethal adversary, and its people are no strangers to suffering, yet they endure. Those who rise from the underhives, hardened by endless gang wars and savage survival, are conscripted into the Astra Militarum, molded by the brutal reality they have lived. Their skills, forged in the fires of combat, make them an indomitable force for the Imperium. Armageddon's manufactoria are a relentless engine of war. There is no rest, no respite, only the endless demand for arms and armor to fuel the Imperium's war machine. Weapons and vehicles are crafted to perfection, honed through the unyielding hands of those who know that survival and victory are born of relentless effort and unbroken resolve. In the Third War for Armageddon, the Steel Legion stands as a bastion of unyielding discipline. When the orc hordes return to the ash wastes and the demons follow, the Steel Legion is the wall that stands firm against the tide of destruction. At Hive Acheron, the battle rages, artillery roars, titans clash, and the blood of millions stains the ground. Yet, amidst the chaos, the Steel Legion continues, ever vigilant, ever resolute. In this relentless war, their tenacity and experience have ensured that more of their warriors survive the first hours of combat than any other regiment. Victory is not just a hope, it is an expectation, and they will stop at nothing to ensure it is achieved.
Yeah, very cool. I just like how this regiment, it's a rarity. You wouldn't think these kind of regiments are rare, but I guess they are, the mechanized ones. And yeah, the ability that they can output so many tanks to just equip their regiment with as many tanks as they need and still ship out a bunch to the galaxy. It's kind of cool. It reminds me of that one story. I'm sure we've told it on Lorehammer before, of just Russians in a factory, and they'd build the tank, send it out. And if it blew up in the door, whatever, they'd just drag it back in, fix up, send it back out. Now, those are shitty tanks and not the ultra mighty Chimera, but similar kind of vibe.
To be clear, the Chimera is not a tank. It's a armored transport.
APC, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's an APC. On the side of it, it's got a bunch of little swivel las gun things on them. A couple of little things. I like it.
Yeah, it plays into. I'm gonna bring up a little bit of the real world connections in a bit here, maybe towards the end. But yeah, there is a distinction between APCs, IFVs, and tanks. But
yeah, the other thing I could kind of imagine them.
Sorry, Yeah, you brought it up before with like why is mechanized infantry so rare, and that's kind of one of the, I guess, one of the main talking points about them, because like that is one of the standout things. It's like you got the Cadians who are just throw bodies at the problem at the meat grinder. You got
Yeah.
Krieg, which is the other trench warfare and like horrible hostile environments. But like this sounds like they use tanks and they like tanks. And I happen to like regiments that like tanks. So
I also imagine they use a lot of sentinels and those walker variants. You know, they're in the hive world, so they have a bunch of sentinel servo lifter guys. When playing Space Marine 2, man, you see a bunch of those things everywhere. They're just littered everywhere, just lifting cargo and stuff. And I'd imagine Steel Legion, once again, they don't. I just imagine they would also have a bunch of these sentinel two-legged walkers.
Yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be outside their own possibility. I don't necessarily picture them as married to just armored personnel carriers. You probably like picture them using a lot of different vehicles. Like that's their theme, that's their thing. And that is interesting that they're not as common. I would have assumed that kind of fighting style is more common, mostly because it is more of a, you know, modernish war fighting thing that happens in the real world. And even like when I say modern, I'm like World War II till now even. Using armored vehicles in tandem with infantry is pretty standard nowadays, but it wasn't always that way. And it's weird. It's like in 40K, like a lot of their tech is kind of backward, right? So
Yeah,
it makes sense that like
tank
it's not a
shapes.
common thing. Yeah. Yeah, like using World War I designs and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just sweet that they can do that much output. It doesn't seem like either they're a mining world, so it just is another resource that they're shipping in. They're shipping in enough metal and parts and whatever to then be able to make it all and assemble it. It's a busy popping planet, man.
Yeah, do they say anything about what the resource extraction, like are they extracting resources there, or are they shipping in resources and then manufacturing there?
It definitely sounds like they're shipping in everything. Like this is, you know, they're shipping in food, they're shipping in everything like that. It's just an output kind of center.
Yeah, you would think it would be more productive. Not that the Imperium is known for productivity, but to just set up your industrial capability on like the extraction planet, and then you don't have to ship the materials. But you know, we do a lot of that in the real world too, where like you'll extract a resource in one place, ship it across the ocean to package it, and then ship it back
Yeah.
to sell it. So
yeah, why not?
Who are we to talk, I guess?
Yeah. Okay, so, and I will give you one more teaser of why I really kind of like Armageddon, and it will all start to come together. So, do you guys know of two ancient battles on this planet that happened? And it can't be the two. And it can't be the wars for Armageddon. Ancient wars.
Oh, yeah, the
think
spoilers. Yeah. Ulanor.
Oh,
yep. Ulanor.
Christian got one.
Yeah.
Gerald got it. Okay, yeah. So one of them is Armageddon is indeed the same planet where both the Ulanor Crusade and the final battle for the War of the Beast took place. During the Ulanor Crusade, it was the site of a pivotal battle against the Orcs, led by the Lord Commander Solar Macarius. Later, during the War of the Beast, Armageddon became the location for the climactic battle between humanity and the Orcs, culminating in the defeat of the Beast's Wog. This makes Armageddon a significant place in the Warhammer universe. So, not only does it have all of the Armageddon stuff, which is big, we're going to get into those wars now, it also has these two really huge moments in history.
Yeah, like Ulanor is where Horus was crowned War Master, and where the Emperor almost died in combat with an Orc war boss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
If that's the same one, yeah.
And then they basically paved and flattened a whole continent and just to hold a parade. So maybe the reason why Armageddon is just a dust world is because they paved it.
I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it makes sense. The Imperium would do that. Yeah. Their ecologists really didn't think that through. That strip of jungle around the equator is actually what is all that's left. Everything else just got flattened.
That's awful for the planet.
Yeah.
No, it just seems like this is a planet that has actually a lot of significance and for some reason things just keep happening to it, even though it's not the most important planet. It apparently is.
Yeah, that's true. I often forget that fact. Jacob in the chat there, just kind of referencing my point from earlier about the efficiency of like building your manufactorums on a world that you're extracting resources from. He just says be more efficient to produce where you mine, but you have to remember it could be choosing planets that had previous manufactorums from the Dark Age tech settlements. That's absolutely true. That's
Sure.
something I didn't even consider. But yeah, 110%.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah.
All right.
What are there?
Well,
so yeah, let's jump into the wars for Armageddon. The citizens of Armageddon are no strangers to brutal warfare. Their world has suffered greatly during the 41st millennia at the hands of invaders throughout no less than 3 devastating wars launched by the enemies of humanity. The Steel Legion played a major role in all of them. So that's one thing I'll point out before we get into them. You know, we think of the Armageddon wars being huge, and they are. But they're only the last 1,000 years. You know, Armageddon has been roughly peaceful for 10,000 years. You know, there's the odd thing happening on it, but it's not like this all-out invasion.
yeah, this is where things are getting bad again.
Yeah, they had
All right.
They had a long history of it being good, and then now it's gotten bad again.
Yeah, and good by a Hive World's metric is still, you know,
You're still eating that sweet.
it's a
corpse
standard.
starch.
Yeah,
And it's nice because it's off-world corpse starch, so it's like flavored kind of different. Like the smell is different, and
it's a
you're
little
not used to it.
spicier.
Yeah.
To be fair, they don't only eat corpse starch. That's a whole like thing. We'll get into it. We'll do a Foods of the Imperium episode, and we'll even do like a taste testing. Let's get into the first war of Armageddon. 444 M41, pre-invasion. In the volatile depths of the Eye of Terror, where chaos reigns supreme, the forces of darkness are perpetually locked in conflict with one another. Yet on rare occasions, their fractured unity consolidates into a singular and terrible purpose. This time, it was the arrival of the immense space hulk devourer of stars that galvanized their ambitions. Laden with a vast chaos warhost, the space hulk set its course towards Imperial space, its presence an undeniable harbinger of war. The warp's treacherous currents carried this threat to the Imperial hive world of Armageddon in 444 M41. On Armageddon itself, troubling signs emerged even before the invaders arrived. A wave of armed insurrection ignited across 6 hive cities, straining the planet's defenses. Armageddon's vast primary continent, divided into the industrial zones of Armageddon Prime and Armageddon Secundus by the dense equatorial jungle, bore the brunt of the unrest. Loyal defenders swiftly quelled the uprisings in Armageddon Secundus, but the scattered and remote hives of Armageddon Prime proved harder to secure. Confident that the local planetary defense forces, or PDF, could suppress these revolts, the Imperium chose not to intervene further. Armageddon's distance from the Eye of Terror lulled its defenders into a false sense of security, leaving them unprepared for the storm about to descend. When the Devourer of Stars emerged from the warp and entered Armageddon system, it was the first strike of a coordinated chaos assault that no one had foreseen. The Devourer of Stars disgorged its deadly cargo upon Armageddon Prime, an overwhelming force commanded by Demon Primarch Angron. World leaders, Chaos Marines, cultists, mutants, demon hosts, and scores of demonic entities poured forth intent on annihilation. The corruption of chaos was insidious and swift. A significant portion of the planetary defense force succumbed to the whispers of the dark gods, betraying their oaths and turning on their comrades. Chaos struck without mercy, slaughtering millions in their initial attacks. The surviving defenders, though outnumbered and besieged, refused to succumb to despair. They withdrew through the jungle, rallying their remaining forces in Armageddon Secundus, and preparing to make a determined stand along the rivers of Styx and Charon.
Oh man, so you're just having a nice day on the peaceful planet of Armageddon. Mind you, they've had like 10,000 good years, and that name translates poorly. It means beautiful place. Um, and then boom, Angron, the demon Primarch of the World Eater, shows up in your your solar system and just invades. And just starts wrecking the place. What a turn, what a twist of events after 10,000 years of peace.
Who could have seen this coming?
Who could have
Yeah,
seen it coming?
As you do.
Armageddon is actually a paradise world. It's just misunderstood. It's not really desert. It's just really big beaches.
Yeah,
You
it's
got-
beach without water.
There's a little bit of water. Is that the and then you have beautiful lush jungle right in the middle of it. What more can you ask for? All right, raising the defenses. The Imperium's defenders displayed unshakable resolve. The forces of chaos underestimated the Imperial response. Unknown to Angron and his war host, the Space Wolves chapter had been assigned to this region of the galaxy. With steadfast discipline and unmatched ferocity, Logan Grimnar and his great company mobilized to reinforce Armageddon's defenders. Angron, consumed by bloodlust, wasted time constructing crude monuments from the remains of the fallen, allowing the defenders precious moments to fortify their lines. When the warp storm that fueled his power began to wane, the Imperium seized the opportunity to counterattack. Grimnar's leadership brought clarity and resolve to the beleaguered defenders. His presence inspired the terrified masses to stand firm in the face of chaos. Just for those unfamiliar with Space Wolves, which most of you should be, Logan Grimnar is their chapter master, so this is like a pretty significant character.
Yeah, he's a cool character too. He's very old, man. One of the oldest like loyalists out there.
Yeah, one of, not the, but one of, yeah. The invaders finally emerged from the equatorial jungle to find an entrenched and disciplined defense waiting for them. Battles erupted across the entire front. Though vastly outnumbered, the Space Wolves embodied determination, launching an armored assault across the river, Charon into the heart of the World Eater's forces. The swift and precise strikes of Grimnar's warriors inflicted grievous losses on the Chaos Horde before retreating, luring their blood-mad foes into an ambush. Along the Charon, the combined might of Space Wolves and Steel Legion crushed the invaders in a disciplined and calculated counteroffensive. Even as victory was achieved along the river, the western front along the river Styx faced the might of Angron himself. With his personal bodyguard, the Cruor Praetoria, a host of towering bloodthirsters, the Demon Primarch shattered the lines of the Imperial Guard and drove towards Hive Infernus and Hive Hellsreach. Despite the devastation, the defenders fought valiantly, holding the line long enough for Imperium's most elite warriors to be unleashed.
Fucking yeah, what a bad day. Now you're fighting this demon Primarch in close combat. I like this tactic that they start using, and it shows up here and over again, where they can reposition closely or quickly and ambush people. They can withdraw quickly and then set up a fortified position. The ability to just move around with these tanks is so cool.
I was going to say, it's amazing what you can do with vehicles instead of having to walk everywhere.
Fuck, I want a tank, man. Maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's why I want this so bad.
You have a
and now a word from our sponsors, World of Tanks.
I was going to say
Gerald,
Raytheon or something.
You're American. Yeah. Can you get a tank in where you're at? What state?
I'll have to look them up. I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
Okay, well, I won't be moving there.
I do know that flamers are legal here, so there you go.
Okay. Interesting.
For those that don't know, Gerald is from East Dakota.
Is that true?
No, East Dakota is not a real place.
No. The mysterious 51st state.
Yeah.
Not many people know the whole time.
52nd state, he means, yeah.
Learning so much always.
All right. Sorry, I lost my place here. Showdown. Recognizing the true scale of the actually one quick thing too. Angron's bodyguard, it's not just like a bunch of Terminators, it's bloodthirsters. Like bloodthirsters themselves are a challenge, but you're dealing not only with Angron, the demon Primarch, you're also dealing with his 8 mightiest bloodthirsters. Like I said, each one of those would be a boss unto itself.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Fucking
why
cool.
is it 8 bloodthirsters, you might ask?
Tell us. The sacred number of corn?
Oh, I was waiting for you to answer, but sure.
Oh, okay.
8 is
Well,
the
yeah.
significant number of corn. So,
Mhm.
for those who don't know, now you do know.
And knowledge is
Murder's
power.
fun, but if you do 8 of them, then Corn likes it. So it's not just
Don't do
selfish
it.
then.
Mhm.
Don't do it just for yourself. Do it for corn.
Exactly.
8 bloodthirsters. Ah.
All right. Let's get into the showdown. Recognizing the true scale of the threat, Logan Grimnar called upon the Grey Knights, the Imperium's ultimate weapon against the forces of chaos. This chapter militant of the Inquisition dispatched 109 Terminator assault marines to confront Angron and his demonic bodyguard directly. Once again, significance in 109 Terminators. Most chapters, at least this used to be the old lore. I don't know if it's technically true anymore, but Terminators were super rare. Only the most like ancient chapters or most honored chapters or well-resourced chapters could muster even 100 Terminators. And the Grey Knights are sending 109. So, yeah. Sorry,
I
did you
thought it
want
was just because they were super special.
to? Well, they are. They are
That's
super
why-
special.
That's why you can't
they
get a
have
lot
so
of
many
them.
terms. Yeah. Mark, did you want to mention something in the chat or no?
And they're calling upon the Grey Knights too, like these ultra super demon hunter guys. I just am picturing like this planet, they're doing what they need to. And then they get involved with Angron all of a sudden out of nowhere. Then a bunch of other people they've probably never heard of get involved, and the planet just becomes the craziest place all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's wild.
Grey Knights showing up, they can't even tell you who they are because they're like, you're not authorized, sorry. Like, what do you do?
If I'm not mistaken, too, is this the first time Angron reemerged from the eye since like the Heresy era?
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, like this is a pretty significant moment even in galactic history.
Yeah, exactly. 10,000 years this guy's been gone missing, and then he shows up on this crusade and on your front door.
Leaving a flaming bag of poop. With unwavering discipline, the Grey Knights teleported into the heart of the Chaos Army, striking at its leaders. Their sacrifice was immense. Angron's Black Blade claimed the lives of 5 Terminators in a single blow, but the Knights fought with precision. Through the psychic might of the young Grey Knight, Hyperion, the Black Blade was shattered, turning the tide of the battle. Brother Captain Terramar Aurelian fell in the final moments, but succeeded in banishing Angron back to the warp for 100 years and a day. With their leader defeated, the demons vanished, and the mortal forces of chaos descended into chaos themselves. Imperial forces pursued the fleeing cultists and traitors into the ash wastes, ensuring that none would escape. Though the Imperium achieved victory, the cost was staggering. The survivors of Armageddon, having witnessed the horrors of chaos, became liabilities in the eyes of the Inquisition. Entire populations were sterilized and relocated to prevent the taint of chaos from spreading.
Oh, yeah,
Mark.
this is where it always gets so like, oh man,
Grimdark.
this is that planet that we always mention. Oh, shoot. Yeah, Grimdark. Hey, man, if you're bringing some food, don't worry about it this time. We have no people here. How about you send us live people this time, and then the next time you can send us corpses to feed those live people. Thanks, manufacturer planet over there.
Or you just say that we have plenty of corpses here. We'll just eat those for now and then come back to us later.
Yeah.
Don't ask where they came from, though.
Yeah, crazy. They just end up repopulating this whole world basically from the demon corruption. They just send millions of people to the planet.
Even the Space Wolves, renowned for their loyalty and ferocity, clashed with the Inquisition over the fate of the people they had fought to defend. Grimnar's protests were met with violence as the Ordo Malleus attacked his fleet, destroying those he sought to protect. Entire worlds associated with the survivors faced exterminatus, wiped clean to preserve the Imperium's secrecy. And that is really like a kick in the teeth, right? Like the Space Wolves, everyone that fought on Armageddon fought not just for the planet, but the survival of the people. And then at the end of it all, your own side turns around on you and says, all right, good job. Now get on the transport.
Get on in. Yeah, you can. Yeah, and it is cool with that Grimnar kind of says, hold on. No, that's not happening. I wonder how often this really happens. You know, we joke about exterminatus being a commonplace, but they're pretty rare. I imagine this policy is also pretty rare. And like we kind of said, Angron, after 10,000 years, appears on your planet. Yeah, okay, maybe this is the policy that you do. You exterminate everyone because it's like a demon Primarch.
Yeah, like not only is the public probably really not even aware of the heresy at all. You know, after that length of time, you might even forget that they are a problem or that they even exist. You get lulled into a sense of safety of like, oh, you know, they all disappeared so long ago. They must have died in the warp, or you know, like they don't even exist, or it's just legends.
Yeah.
Even, right?
Well,
Like,
Liar
by
in the
that
comments.
point-
Yeah, Liar in the comments actually makes a good point. It says, I actually wonder how much the average citizen would know of the planet's history, like how much written on it even still exists after 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's two sides to that coin. One is someone somewhere, maybe in the depths of the administratum, is tracking that history. But the other layer is like, okay, how much is forgotten through just like the course of time? And then how much is actively censored by the Imperium, right? You have both of those. Also, I don't totally think I trust a guy named Liar, but I'll roll with that.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing too, real quick before we move on, is like the fact that the Inquisition does go to blows with the Space Wolves. I remember it always kind of being a little bit of a weird, like a sticky point where they didn't go so far as to declare the Space Wolves like outright heretics or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the fact that they could even exchange a gunfire and both walk
Don't
away
tell
from
Thousand Sons fanboys.
Yeah. Don't tell. Yeah, no, it is kind of a crazy moment, and like it definitely shows how these organizations would interact, but very rare cases where they actually do.
Yeah, to that level of actually coming
Yeah.
to blows. Through it all, the defenders of Armageddon upheld their oaths with steadfast resolve, proving that even in the face of unspeakable horrors, the Imperium spirit remains unbroken, especially if you kill them all. The sacrifices made on Armageddon were not in vain. The defenders' legacy endures as a testament to humanity's resilience, discipline, and relentless will to survive until you get murdered by your own side.
Yeah. Well, at least you're giving to somebody else for one last meal, so that's fine.
So I do wonder, actually, too, if you're a new colonist to Armageddon, you got to ask what happened to everyone else that was here before.
There's the bullet holes in all the walls,
right.
You know.
Yeah.
You open up the odd room that hasn't been cleaned. It's just like corpses,
blood everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they must have had some kind of propaganda.
This is a very interesting question. Please submit it to your local commissar for further instruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty crazy war. The next war we'll do is the second one. And we're doing an Armageddon Steel Legion episode. So these wars for Armageddon, they alone could have their own episode. There's so much that happens that, you know, back and forth to crazy weapons and all that, all the different chapters that show up. But we're just giving you a brief little summary here. So let's do the second war next. And this happened in 941 M41.
So that's what,
before
like
the
500 years?
Let's look. Yeah, about 500 years. Yeah, and you know, maybe by then all the people would have been slowly filtered out of there and killed off and like kind of rotated through and repopulated. And
but then you think it's a paradise world again with the vast beaches.
Exactly. We haven't seen war for 500 years. That was just a blip of tragedy in our history.
A big accident.
Remember, after all, the
bad
Emperor
day.
threw a huge parade here. We're a pretty cool place. Before the landing, the spark of war. The battle for Armageddon was forged years before the first orc boot struck its soil. 9 years earlier, Ghazghkull Meg Urk Thraka was a mere boy among the Orc hordes on the dying world of Urk. During a desperate raid by an unnamed Space Marine chapter, fate struck hard. A bolter shell tore through Ghazghkull's skull, leaving him grievously wounded. Yet, even as death loomed, resilience found a way. A pain boy, Mad Doc Grotznik, replaced the shattered cranium with a crude bionic implant. Whether by sheer determination or awakened psychic potential, Ghazghkull claimed divine visions of Gork and Mork. He swiftly rose, driven by unyielding will to become the war boss of his tribe within 6 years. When the star of die unleashed deadly solar flares, Ghazghkull seized the opportunity. A massive space hulk appeared in orbit, a salvation or divine providence. With relentless fervor, he united the planet's warring tribes and launched a wog of unparalleled ambition. The journey tested them with failing power systems and demonic onslaughts, hardening his forces into battle-hardened warriors. The arrival and the relentless momentum. 1 month after boarding or landing, Ghazghkull's Space Hulk crushed the Armageddon system's defenses, annihilating satellites and craft and small craft in its path. Desperate pleas for aid went unanswered as the horde closed in. When the Orcs disembarked on the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension, their impact was cataclysmic. Entire hives were obliterated, such as Urfern, leveled by the landing of Clad Desolation. And then they have another bad day. They're just all having a nice time at the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension, and boom, a warp portal opens up with an Orc Space Hulk in it that crashes into the planet and overwhelms them, destroys a bunch of hives. You got to start getting really paranoid on this planet anytime a ship jumps into it. The war begins. As the Orc invasion tore into Armageddon, a warp storm sealed the systems, isolating the defenders. Hive Lord Hermann von Straub dismissed warnings of the looming threat and squandered precious time. Commissar Sebastian Yark embodied unshakable discipline, defied von Straub's ignorance, and began organizing resistance. When the Orcs landed, the northern defenses of Armageddon Prime crumbled under von Straub's ill-prepared strategies. Yet Yark's ingenuity gave hope. Shuttle pilots risked their lives to arm the north, many sacrificing themselves as their ship burned in the atmosphere. Von Straub fled south, abandoning the north to its fate. Even as the Imperial forces fell back to defensive positions, Yark's determination never wavered. His defiance galvanized the people of Hades' Hive, forging a unified front against the unstoppable tide. Cool. Yark starts to pop up and make a name for himself, and he might be the one commissar on the planet that people actually like for once. Normally, you're not inviting him over to your cafeteria table for a coffee in the morning, the commissar.
He's not just liked by the humans, he's also liked by the Orcs, who affectionately call him Oh Baelai.
Oh Baelai. Yeah, he hasn't got there yet, but yeah, he's well loved. He starts making a name for himself. Saves a couple hive worlds. But the Orc offensive is unyielding. The Orcs unleashed their might on Armageddon Secundus. During the Seasons of Shadows, armored columns smash through the Imperial lines as volcanoes erupt, casting the battlefield in darkness. Against this brutal onslaught, Precepts Mannenheim of Legio Metallica led his Titans into battle. In the defining act of resilience, Mannheim sacrificed his Titan Steelhammer, self-destructing to annihilate Gargants and halt the Orc advance. Despite setbacks, the Orcs pressed south, capturing Hive and Furnace and enslaving its population. Refugee columns fleeing the carnage faced relentless pursuit of Orc bikers, while defensive lines along Armageddon's rivers crumbled. Yet, in Hades' Hive, Yark held firm, his iron will inspiring a ragged defense that refused to yield. Yeah, I just picture this line of combat that's was pretty static for so long, and then now has just shifted on such broad ranges, where once the river was the defensive line, now that's been overrun and everyone hopped in their tanks and drove miles back and just kind of tried to regroup somewhere else. And just the shifting kind of positions in the desert, very fun. Holding the line. Hades' hive became a crucible of resilience. Amidst the constant bombardment and starvation, Yorick forged alliances with gangs and rallied the population. The hive endured under siege, its people surviving on rats and roaches, but their spirits remained unbroken. Von Straub, desperate to stem the tide, unleashed ancient virus bombs. Yet his plan failed spectacularly, leaving him to sulk in his bunker. In Port Hellsreach, defiance burned brightly. Makeshift street gangs ambushed Orc patrols, while crane operators welded themselves into their machines to battle Gargants. That's pretty fun, too. These crane operators battering Gargants with their fucking swivel arms, dropping cargo crates on them. Get in the spirit there! Their ferocity forced even the Orc commanders to reconsider their advance. Though the hive ultimately fell to a devastating psychic attack, the defenders' unrelenting courage became a symbol of humanity's resolve. The turning point and the Emperor's retribution. As Hades' hive braced for annihilation, salvation arrived from the skies. Space Marine chapters, led by Commander Dante of the Blood Angels, descended upon the Orc horde with disciplined precision. Orbital bombardments shattered Orc lines, and Thunderhawks delivered reinforcements to embattled defenders. For the first time, the Orcs faltered. Commander Dante seized control of the Imperial forces, placing von Straub under his house arrest for his failures. Though von Straub escaped, his influence waned, and the tide of war began to turn. As Hades' hive, Ghazghkull redoubled his efforts, but Yorick's unyielding determination met every assault with defiance. Maintenance crews armed with bolt pistols and knives crawled through ventilation shafts to eliminate Orc commandos, while suicide missions destroyed siege engines. They're very crafty too. I think maybe that's something I should have talked a lot more about. And maybe this is something new that the regiment can kind of develop into, being super crafty and nifty. They're taking gangers and using them together. They're taking all their service workers, putting them to fight and stuff. They're coming up with unique strategies and tactics. It's not just like meat shields.
It seems kind of I know they're given a lot more liberties to kind of tinker with stuff, like the construction crew workers welding themselves inside their crane, or just you doing anything they can to just like craftily like help themselves win the day. I feel like if you tried to put like a Cadian or a Krieg trooper in that situation, it'd be like, no, we can't do that. That's that's tech heresy. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, but they're just like they're desperate times. They'll do anything, but also they got that little bit of a creative spark, that craftiness. So it's kind of neat that's showing up.
So you're starting to warm me up to them a little bit.
We'll get there. Don't worry. We're just getting the history of it still. We'll get there. Because believe it or not, they do fight off the Orcs. A lot of hives fell, but a fight to the finish. The war for Armageddon exemplifies relentless determination in the face of overwhelming odds. From the embattled hives to the defiant Titan crews, every defender of Armageddon embodied discipline and sacrifice. Commissar Yarick's leadership and intervention of the Adeptus Astartes turned the tide, proving the resilience and unity could stand against even the most ferocious Wog. Though the Orcs pressed on, their momentum was broken. The people of Armageddon, forged in the fires of war, refused to surrender, though they fought not for survival alone, but to uphold the indomitable spirit of humanity. Yeah, and these people kind of just got to this planet. And this was kind of the attitude that they had. They're like, we're going to fight and die for this planet. Like, they hadn't been here for thousands of years. They probably just got here on the next flight in type thing when they're repopulating this hive. But they're also like, we're all in it together. It's kind of interesting if you're like stuck in that tight confines, you know, and you have no way out. You're not leaving this planet. What does that do? Does it turn to chaos, or does it turn to everyone kind of helping out?
To be fair, too, like
Well,
it has been
quote
500
the,
years, too. Just saying, they're not necessarily fresh off the
True.
transport.
Yeah.
True. But also to do a Art of War quote for those who were fans of Sun Tzu, I think one of the points was like, if you burn your own ships, you give your troops no means to escape. So that usually means they'll fight that much harder for victory. So just apply that to to Armageddon's current situation.
Yeah.
So,
One thing we talked about them too is, you know, they're battling hives a lot, just as much as they're battling in the desert too. And the scale of hives is pretty cool. I imagine them just tank battles in the lower kind of outer rims of the hive, these big streets where all the manufactorum's happening and stuff, and just all these little tank battles in the streets is very cool.
definitely.
Yeah, so that's kind of what happens in that one. Once again, it deserves a full episode. But we'll jump to the third one and give you a brief little what kind of really happened here.
But wait, there's more. Following his defeat, Ghazghkull's unyielding resolve, defeated in the Second War for Armageddon by Commissar Yark, Ghazghkull Thraka did not falter. The war boss withdrew, regrouped, and began relentless preparations for his next offensive. Understanding that to conquer an enemy, one must first know them intimately. Ghazghkull treated his initial loss as a hard-earned lesson in Imperial strategy. Even as debilitating headaches and doubts arose, he remained steadfast, brushing aside dissent from both the maddened Grotsnik and even his most trusted aide, Makari. Defying the supposed will of the gods, Ghazghkull chose to forge his own destiny, marking the beginning of an unstoppable campaign toward an even greater invasion of Armageddon. Alliance and innovation. Refusing to stagnate, Ghazghkull turned to strategic alliances, joining forces with war boss Nazdreg Erdgrub, wow, that's a mouthful, whose mech boys possessed unparalleled teleporter technology. I'm about to start going into my orc voice if you keep on throwing in more orc words here. A calculated bargain was struck. Aid for Nazdreg during the Battle of Pacina 4 in exchange for this vital innovation. I got a quote in regards to that. With this new advantage in hand, Ghazghkull's vision expanded further. He sought to convert the resource-rich planet of Golgotha into a production hub for his next war. Though Commissar doggedly pursued him, Ghazghkull's resolve never wavered, capturing Yarok himself in the Battle of Golgotha. Remarkably, the war boss chose to release his nemesis, deeming him too valuable a rival to simply crush. What is this, a trick? Not a trick. Respect.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with orcs like fighting, and they had, like, Yark gave them such a good fight that's why they revere him.
It's like they're best friends. Like,
yeah,
we had the best fight with them. They're the best of buds. Yeah. Yeah.
So, did anyone else have something?
It would
to
be
say?
crazy. It would be crazy on this planet. So you fight off the Second War for Armageddon, and kind of 50 years happens before this war. But during those 50 years, you know, you start getting reports from other planets about how big the Second War really was. Like, it's one of the biggest wogs ever recorded. And when you're in it in the moment, you don't quite, like, you wouldn't know that, you know, you're cut off from all communication. But during these like 50 years after, just imagine that they're like, holy fuck, that was a lot of orcs.
There's a lot of cleanup. Yeah,
They just keep on coming.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
the real
orcs.
heroes of Armageddon are the janitorial staff. I have to clean up after all these battles.
Yeah.
Maybe
they're
the
not
real
paid
Armageddon
enough.
was the orcs we killed along the way.
Maybe. Maybe the name does mean something.
Hi, would you like to come live on the planet called Hell?
What if we called it Armageddon? Would you be interested then?
Sign me up. All right. So
Yeah,
before I get
look
into the
into-
notes, I do have part of a quote from our favorite Ghazghkull Thraka in regards to Golgotha and Piscina 4. Let me find a quote. Okay. I'm deaf to anything that walks or crawls, where I got nothing stands in my way. We crushed the stunties on Golgotha, and we cut all one eye when the speed freaks blew the Umi's big tank to bits. I let them go, because good enemies is hard to find, and orcs need enemies to fight, like they need meat to eat and grog to drink. I's more cunning than a grot and more killer than a dread. The boys that follow me can't be beat. On Pazena, we jumped the Marine boys, and our boss pools was covered in the helmets we took from the Deadens. We burned the ports and killed the bosses and left nothing but ruins behind. I'm Warlord Ghazghkull Thraka, and I speak with the word of the gods. We's gonna stomp the universe flat and kill anything that fights back. We's gonna do this because we's orcs, and we was made to fight and win.
Yeah.
So, Ghazghkull
yeah.
Thraka, everybody.
Yeah, very nice. I'm working on a
Alright, yeah.
episode called Corks, Prime Orcs, and Ghazghkull, and kind of the different power level of
Ooh.
orcs. You know, it's very easy to tell the difference between a feral boy and like a 40k orc boy. So it'd be kind of cool to go through these kind of power levels and see what's what. But yeah, Ghazghkull, even him, like all of a sudden his name goes across the whole universe. Yeah. Stopped at Armageddon, defeated.
But he came back for round 2. The third war for Armageddon begins. Ghazghkull unleashed an orc fleet of unprecedented size upon the Armageddon sector, overwhelming Imperial defenses. Kill cruisers crashed through the naval blockade, and more orc fleets loomed on the horizon. Against these insurmountable odds, Yarick and his Imperial forces, bolstered by regiments of the Astra Militarum, Titan Legions, Sisters of Battle, and over 20 Space Marine chapters, held the line with unshakable discipline. So, 20 chapters. You know this is a big deal.
Yeah.
On top of all the other Imperial factions.
And this is when the Armageddon people, they just strap on their gas mask and are back at it. They're like, all right, we've done this a good handful of times now. This is like the 5th apocalypse we've had. But don't worry,
Yeah.
after this, maybe we'll get a couple thousand years of rest. It'll be fine.
That's why they called it Armageddon.
Maybe.
These apocalyptic battles.
Yeah, so
Constantly.
big.
All right,
quick
soldiers,
question.
put on your
Hold on.
helmets and gas masks. Let's make this corpse starch.
On those Space Marine chapters, are we talking full chapters or just a complement of Space Marines from 20 chapters? Because that's also...
imagine it's just a compliment, you know, like a
Yeah.
chapter might only have a squad or two,
Probably.
but you know, still,
it's still a significant contribution of force for sure. And I often think sometimes it can be like maybe 1 or 2 full chapters. There definitely have been deployments that were full chapter strength. So I'm just saying, to be clear on the numbers, like it's not always a full chapter.
Yeah, this is another way to show how important
listen.
Armageddon, the planet, is as like a manufactorum output. When it gets threatened, they're like, okay, we can't lose this production supply place. We got to make sure it always has people on it, and those factories are always pumping out tanks. Like it's that vital. When it gets invaded, they send in Grey Knights. They send in 20 Space Marine chapters. Like they get serious about this planet.
That, and it's in the Segmentum Solar too. I think it's pretty
they
significant.
get serious.
Yeah.
I mean, this is basically like 40K's reach almost. Well, it was Cadia, but well, we don't talk about that.
Yeah, well, apparently Cadia 2.0 is coming out. They strapped a rocket on the back of that thing, and now it's flying around space as a Cadia meteor.
The rock exists, so it's not impossible.
It's not impossible.
Not impossible. But the Rock
Um,
did it first.
Gerald, to your point about Reach,
Yeah.
talking about Halo, is there a connection between Hell's Reach and Reach, perhaps? Maybe.
I never made that connection before, but I'll have to think about that.
Many long nights of meditation will be spent on that question. And only when he's ready, when he feels like he's truly got the answer, will we hear. But it will take a while.
6 weeks after entering the system, hundreds of orc rocks descended into Armageddon's surface, obliterating Hades' hive in an act of vengeance. Orc landers followed endless waves, swarming the planet despite the fierce resistance of the Imperial Navy fighters and defense lasers. Meanwhile, the rocks disgorged not only orc warriors but also heavy machinery teleported directly from orbit, showcasing the fruits of Ghazghkull's relentless technological pursuits. Titans and Gargants clashed in brutal combat, and feral orcs emerged from the jungles, spreading havoc across the world. The Imperial counteroffensive. Commissar Yarick's response was as methodical as it was unyielding. He transformed the fragmented defenders into an ironclad war machine, forging a cohesive force that countered every orc advance with unwavering resolve. Allied with Space Marine chapters, he orchestrated a relentless counterattack. Treachery was punished as the disgraced former governor Hermann von Straub met his end. The season of fire soon turned the battle into a test of endurance, forcing the orcs into temporary retreat. And of course, there was some struggles along the equatorial jungle. Imperial regiments led by Armageddon orc hunters and Catachan veterans waged a tireless campaign to contain orcs in the equatorial jungle. Though successes were hard-won, the feral orcs remained an ever-present threat. Amidst this chaos, factions such as the Relictors and Black Templars pursued their own missions, uncovering ancient relics and confronting chaos forces, all while holding the jungle lines against orc incursions. And if anybody knows anything about the Hell's Reach movie, like the Black Templars do have like a major presence there. And it's funny that Grimaldus is here in the comments with us this evening.
Yes, Grimaldus. Yeah, it's cool the orcs here. You know, we've been talking about Armageddon Steel Legion, but the orcs would get such a flavor of war gear from these guys. Imagine all the looted chimeras that they'd get from here.
Ill-fitting gas masks, yeah.
Ill-fitting gas masks, yeah. Be a cool vibe. All the desert kind of Mad Max war bands that would form up. Yeah, it'd be a fun place.
And there's a few other battles to mention, notably the Battle of Gurgatana Bay. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. At Gurgatana Bay, a daring orc assault led by Warboss Judrog. Warboss Judrog Irontooth unleashed an overwhelming dreadnought force upon Imperial defenses. Yet the stalwart Space Marines, led by brothers Deimos and his venerable dreadnoughts, held firm. A brutal confrontation ensued, costing the orcs dearly. Though the Imperium paid a heavy price, they emerged victorious, forcing Judrog into retreat. And, of course, more on Ghazghkull. Judrog. Frustrated by the stalemate, yet emboldened by the chaos he had sown, Ghazghkull resolved to expand his ambitions beyond Armageddon. Reviving Makari, he acknowledged past errors and reaffirmed his ultimate vision, uniting the orc race in an unrelenting holy war across the galaxy. Declaring the start of the Great War, Ghazghkull departed Armageddon, leaving his subordinates to continue the war. The war rages on. Though Yarick pursued Ghazghkull into the haunted gulf, the war boss proved elusive. Yet Armageddon remained a battlefield swarming with orcs and seething with conflict. Across the planet, Imperial forces fought with disciplined fury, determined to contain the green-skinned menace. Against overwhelming odds, the defenders of Armageddon remained resolute, their relentless spirit ensuring that the war would continue until victory or death.
Yeah, crazy. So that's the state of Armageddon now, under heavy orc invasion again. A lot of the kind of same tactics are being used. A lot of the same battles are kind of playing out again. The same hives are under the same threat. But it's just another massive battle. Now a bunch of space marines get called in. And it's like that for a moment until we get the Sycorax Maledictum. And that opens up and has not so good consequences for Armageddon. So this is dubbed by me the fourth war for Armageddon. This is not actually canon. What happens actually happens, but the war itself is not actually dubbed that. But
Yeah, it's not called the Fourth War.
No, but it definitely should be, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's a fair point to switch labels here from the third to the fourth. The war endured through the era now called the Blackness, a time when nearly all Imperial worlds were cut off from one another. Armageddon stood alone, isolated as reinforcements vanished into the void of the Great Rift. The forces of chaos wasted no time, and demonic legions erupted across the planet. Yet even amidst this dire adversity, the defenders of Armageddon, both orc and human, showed a relentless will to survive, occasionally forging fragile truces to face the greater threat. Such alliances were fleeting, and soon the legions of Khorne and Tzeentch turned their wrath upon each other, leaving the battered defenders to regroup and endure in the shelter of the war-torn plains. When the Astronomicon's light finally pierced the darkness and reinforcements arrived, the Imperium found a world drastically altered. Half of Armageddon had been twisted into a hellish demon world, a grotesque fusion of infernal corruption layered atop the shattered remnants of the hive world. The Imperial Relief Force, led by the indomitable Salamanders and bolstered by 9 Space Marine chapters, confronted the chaos head-on. Their disciplined effort succeeded in halting the ritual that threatened to summon Angron back to Armageddon. Yet the Red Angel's Gate remained a wound in the planet's soul, and the war escalated to even greater heights. The unrelenting slaughter drew orc warbands from Gratnica, Ruis, and Golotha, all eager for the fight.
Everyone wants this paradise world now. Angron's like, that was a sweet place to vacation. Let's go back. I'm really thinking about booking my warp trip to Armageddon.
Yeah. Man, I'm trying to find a way to sell that demon half of the world, but I'm not coming up with any good advertising gimmicks here. I don't know how to phrase it.
Come join us on a demon hunting safari with the Armageddon Steel Legion.
There you go.
Patent
also
pending.
before I go on to, we should mention that there's so much more to these Armageddon wars. I'm sure we'll cover in future episodes, different angles, different there's so much. You have different chapters coming to the forefront, other regiments that are there. So I just see in the glance over in the chat and people keep just mentioning things about Armageddon. It's yeah, we will get to them eventually.
Yeah. But that does give you a pretty good little picture. I think there's a little bit more reading.
Yeah, there's a little bit more to go. The arrival of chaos has further deepened the conflict into a relentless, grinding 3-front war. Traitor warbands, demonic hosts, and heretical cults strike without mercy from the northern reaches and beyond, while the orcs continue their ceaseless assaults on Imperial reinforcements that now pour in. The planet itself shudders under the strain of warp energies emanating from the Red Angel's Gate. The whispers of Armageddon's final hour ripple through the defenders' ranks. Over the planet, a vast debris field orbits, a grim testament to the unyielding struggle. Amongst the wreckage of countless shattered vessels and orc rocks, battles rage on. Human and Xenos pirates, Imperial naval forces, and Chaos warships clash endlessly, each faction determined to claim dominance over the embattled world. It's crazy. They're actually forming a ring around the planet from all the debris and refuse from constant fighting.
So fucking cool.
Yeah.
What a place this is. Even the Xenos want it.
Yeah, they're wrecking my planet. It's that good, man. I'm telling you. Beachfront property for miles. I should sell people on the Sahara Desert. It's not a desert. It's just a massive beach. The coasts are
Beachless
just on
property.
really far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Armageddon refuses to fall. Its defenders endure with unshakable resolve, discipline in the face of overwhelming chaos, and relentless in their pursuit of victory, no matter the cost. And that's where we are today, ladies and gentlemen.
The planet is now actually truly Armageddon, a hellscape planet. But
Yeah. And you just see
it
these
took a while to get there.
reinforcements just like feeding into this like constant grind.
Yeah. Yeah, the planet had a really good run, and then it didn't. So we're talking about these guys. Like, let's picture for 10,000 years, this regiment was actually capable of, making a regiment, shipping it out, producing stuff. They weren't fighting this like never-ending meat grinder battle on their planet. They just had a really bad fucking millennia, essentially. Yes.
Don't worry,
Yeah.
it's just a speed bump. You had 10,000 good years, man. What's 1,000 bad years?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
Can't
saying.
have all the good years.
And then you get 4
Total Imperial victory.
style events. Total victory, yeah. Planet's still making tanks.
Jacob in the chat there said they could be recycling all the scrap into new metal and cast and weld chimeras.
Ooh, yes.
I imagine that somewhere there's still like any factories that aren't totally bombed out battlefields are probably would be doing that. Yeah. You got to always look on the bright side of things, There's just infinite resources everywhere scattered around in flaming wreckage.
I like it. Sure, it's infused with warp energies now, but that's part of the charm.
Bright side of life.
Do they have space vacuums other than the vacuum of space to get rid of all the space debris? No, they have little like fish nets that they shoot up into space and that pull stuff down into the desert, and all the debris just falls in the desert. Scavenge it that way. All the vacuums are used for vacuuming up the orc corpses, I think, as the janitors need them all. The MVPs.
The real MVPs.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to their training. How have these guys, it's interesting. Like, yeah, I just keep kind of going back to it. For 10,000 years, they're one thing, and then they have one century that really changes them. And they have like still a lot of the same vibes and stuff, but also very different kind of vibe as well after being tested. So let's do some training. Imperial Guardsmen, you are the last line of defense against the alien hordes that threaten our Imperium. Each one of you brave warriors is a part of a vast fighting force that will be called upon to serve in the Eternal War. You will fight on countless battlefields on 1,000 different worlds across the galaxy, and whether you fight in our great crusading armies or serving with the smaller garrison, you must be proud to sacrifice your life to save humanity from its enemies. And that was Commissar Yarrick addressing the new recruits. The Armageddon Steel Legion exemplifies this unyielding spirit. Masters of mechanized warfare, they excel in deploying armored infantry to crush orc assault and dominate in urban combat. Hive city warfare and polluted industrial zones hardened by the homeworld's toxic wastelands, these disciplined troopers are equipped and experienced to fight in environments most would consider uninhabitable. Their experience extends to traversing underhives contaminated by ancient atomic generators and toxic swamps laden by hallucinogenic flora. Quicksand and lethal gas pockets. In every scenario, the Steel Legion's relentless focus ensures victory where lesser forces would falter. So their training is basically just growing up on this planet. Even when it's not getting invaded, it still is not a good planet. Just going outside requires some form of discipline to put your mask on correctly. And, there's not a lot of excess on this planet, so you're not getting extra meals, so you're rationing food and all that. Living in the hive is its own big, crazy situation of discipline.
Yeah. It's also interesting to note too that the Steel Legion, even though obviously their own planet is always at risk, they also ship off regiments to other places too. So
Yeah.
you
Well,
can
like-
have Steel Legion turn up on other battlefields.
Yeah, well, like I said, like for 10,000 years, they had a good time. They didn't have any known battles. Like they were a very important trade population or trade planet. It was a good time. And like, yeah, so you'll find them all over the galaxy.
Mm-hmm. It was like y'all said, they had a good 10,000 years before they had that one bad millennium.
Yeah.
Just speaking to their like the state of their planet also being just like, you know, very toxic, and I hate to say that about such a lovely place. Yeah, they obviously like influences the way they look, right? Like for those unfamiliar with what Steel Legion look like, they typically do have gas masks. They're not as crazy as Kriegers with it, but they're definitely up there with the gas mask regiments where like most of them have
It's
it.
part of the uniform. It's not just an
Yeah, you put it
option.
on even when you don't need it.
Yeah.
This is to be worn at all times for looks, not for combat effectiveness. All right.
So let's talk about their combat doctrine. If I'm not jumping the gun here, sorry, jumping the bolter, as it were. The Armageddon Steel Legion's combat doctrine. There we go. Jumping the Chimera, maybe. The Armageddon Steel Legion's combat doctrine is a masterclass in disciplined warfare, born from the trials of endless battle against the orc hordes, and forged in the hostile war wastelands of their polluted homeworlds. This doctrine emphasizes precision, coordination, and relentless pressure, utilizing mechanized infantry and armored vehicles to overwhelm the enemy with combined firepower and impenetrable defense. The Steel Legion's mechanized tactics revolve around rapid deployment and sustained aggression. Troops advance under the protection of their chimeras, disembarking only when it is strategically advantageous to do so. These coordinated movements allow the Legion to maintain pressure on the enemy while remaining shielded from counterattacks. Their vehicles provide not just mobility, but also devastating firepower, ensuring that the Steel Legion dominates both open battlefields and confined urban ruins. Supporting these tactics is a meticulous chain of command that values precision and reliability above all else. Steel Legion officers are trained to make decisive decisions under pressure, and their orders are carried out with unwavering obedience. This cohesion allows the Legion to execute complex maneuvers, such as synchronized armor advances and enveloping enemy formations with ruthless efficiency. The rites of war was practiced. The rites of war. The rites of war practiced by the Steel Legion reflect their unwavering discipline and the harsh realities of life on Armageddon. Each battle begins with the recitation of prayers to the Emperor, invoking his protection against the galaxy's myriad dangers. Prior to deployment, officers conduct rigorous inspections of troops and vehicles, ensuring that no piece of war gear fails when it is most needed.
Cool.
So they are very on point with their stuff. So
yeah, if something's not working, then it just is not good. I can imagine this comes from like the mindset of the hive workers and the quotas, where if something breaks, then they don't meet their quota, then they get in trouble. It's just a big thing where you got to make sure everything's just working top notch because it's such an important place. And then it bleeds into their warfare. It's cool that they're super disciplined, and that's how they're allowed to kind of, or not allowed to, but that's how they pull off all these fancy tank maneuvers or pincer ambushes or just whatever tactics they kind of got up their sleeve in that moment.
Yeah, I was saying how they wear their gas masks too due to the toxic environment. I always kind of figured it was like thematically because of their armored vehicles too. Like I imagine those things like pollute like nobody's business. So just the fact that they're always in them might be nice to have a little filtered air while you're burning oil in the cabin crew compartment.
New solar powered,
filtered
battery
air,
operated APC Chimera. Yeah,
maybe a little bit of filtered air, maybe a little bit of noise reduction because of how loud those tanks are.
Yeah,
so
jeez.
They're not modern vehicles.
No.
Liar in the chat says that's what canned air is for. You are correct. Those aren't actually filters; it's canned air that they're just breathing, and then they chuck them and replace with new canned air.
Chuck it, like get a new one. That's pretty neat. Fucking tight.
All right, let's get into the regimental organization. My favorite part of any regiment is saying how it breaks down.
Let me know how many badges you have and what they all mean, please.
Yeah. I want every detail, every subtle pin and patch on every uniform. The hive world of Armageddon is a testament to the unyielding nature of the Imperium's resolve. Its vast ash wastes, poisoned by the scars of relentless industry, are blanketed in toxic pollutants and corrosive chemicals. Though jungles and oceans persist in some regions, even these are tainted by the inescapable reach of industrial decay. Life beyond the towering hive cities is a battle for survival, a battle Armageddon citizens have endured for generations. Within the hive cities, humanity thrives under constant pressure. These cities are more than factories. They are hives of ceaseless labor, teeming with workers, overseers, and the machinery that fuels the war effort. Beneath the surface lies a darker truth. Savage gang wars rage in the depths of the underhives, where survival is determined by grit, cunning, and sheer force of will. The victors of these struggles are often forged into some of the fiercest warriors the Imperium has to offer. Quick sidebar, do we know anything about the gangs of Armageddon? Like, we know Necromunda's gangs are pretty fleshed out, but is there anything, even, are the guys with the spider webs, I forget, they're from Cadia, right? Are those Cadian gangers?
Not totally sure.
Do you know what I'm talking about, though?
The guys with the spider webs?
Yeah, they have spider web tattoos on their, like, elbows and eyes. They were pretty prominent in one of the codices from a while back.
Interesting. Okay.
They might be from Armageddon. If I don't know, my memory is a little dodgy on that. But anyways, there are gangs on Armageddon. Not all gangs follow the Necromunda template.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just do a quick search to see if I can find anything.
Yeah, just chime in when you figure it out. It is from this crucible of violence that the Armageddon Steel Legion draws many of its recruits. Veterans of Underhive warfare, hardened by years of brutal conflict, are conscripted into the ranks of the Steel Legion, where their resilience and resourcefulness proves invaluable. Entire gangs are sometimes drafted en masse, requiring little additional training to become effective soldiers. These former gangers excel in small unit tactics, their ingenuity and adaptability honed by years of survival in the unforgiving underhives. Okay. The regiment I was thinking of with the spider webs are the Necromundan spiders. So there are a guard regiment recruited from Necromunda.
Oh, interesting.
Man, not everything is about Necromunda. Come on.
Yeah, geez. Come on.
Hogging all the gangs. A quick historical note. You might think that street gangs would be optimal for recruiting soldiers from. However, historically, this has not been the case, especially if you want discipline. I know in World War I, actually, was it World War I or I can't remember what war it was, but there was an intentional drive to recruit gangs, to get them off the streets of the home cities because they were causing problems, but they found quickly that a lot of those guys were undisciplined, and B, were more interested in self-preservation than like self-sacrifice needed for like good unit cohesion.
Sure.
So oftentimes they would not do so great. And I'm thinking in the context of a legion that's based around discipline, maybe not optimal, but 40K is not realistic.
How dare you?
Discipline can always be taught through an iron fist.
Yeah.
So the Steel Legion marches to war clad in uniforms as relentless as their spirit. Each guardsman wears a mustard yellow greatcoat, protective gas masks, and rounded helmets over black fatigues. Armor against both the enemy and the planet itself. Armed with M36 lasguns, grenade launchers, and missile launchers, the Steel Legion fights with precision and efficiency. The regiments are supported by the formidable might of the Chimera transports and Lehman Russ executioner battle tanks, each a testament to the Legion's unwavering discipline and their world's industrial power. Just a quick note, too, on their uniform colors. Typically, like regiments will have a distinctive color scheme, but then they have like sub regiments that might have alternative pattern color schemes. So yes, like the typical Steel Legionnaire would be like that mustard yellow greatcoat color. But and even with Cadians, right? Like everyone knows Cadians wear the green flak armor and the tan fatigues or khaki fatigues. But there are other regiments, like other Cadian regiments, other Steel Legion regiments that have alternative color schemes. But yeah,
it looks really good when you do like black armor on that tan, though. Comes off very nice, and then the black mask and black helmet, and so stylish. Who do you think their stylist is? You know, that's what I want to know.
History is your stylist, and I'll tell you all about that at the end of the episode. Where was I? The people of Armageddon endure against all odds. They rise from the depths of their polluted world, disciplined, relentless, and ready to carry the Emperor's will into the galaxy. Yeah,
it's a cool spot, man. Like, I just picture this planet has been working in like unison, just making a bunch of tanks, working really good. Makes a very interesting type of people where they're almost like they're smart somewhat. They're kind of mechanics or whatever. They can kind of come up with these different plans of using things. They can use tools and stuff. Kind of a fun little vibe.
I mean, with their proximity to their vehicles too, like their tactics and everything depends on their vehicle functioning. So I imagine they have probably a little more mechanical aptitude than the average Imperial citizen or guardsman regiment.
Yeah, for sure. Got to make sure that tank keeps moving.
Yeah. Or APC. Keep calling them tanks, and it irks me.
What is the difference technically?
Well, APCs are like armored carriers, like, and AFVs are like fighting vehicles, so they typically have like a heavier gun on them. So like and I forget in 40K terms, like the Chimera. What's a Chimera with that has like the turret on top?
That is like
is that a Manticore?
Chimera.
No. The Chimera, does the Chimera have a turret?
It's got a little turret on it, but then they also have the Chimera chassis where, they do put on a bunch of different things like that.
Okay, yeah. Well, like typically an armored fighting vehicle will have like a heavier gun on it, and then an armored personnel carrier will have like either no arms or light arms on it, and they're all used mostly for transporting, unless it's an AFV that will support your infantry element. And then like a tank is a tank, like it's meant for fighting
on it.
Yeah, and fighting as a vehicle, like it's not disgorging.
It's like in Space Marine. In Space Marine terms, like the APC would be the impulsor that does have like a light. You can fit it with like a light machine gun or a light missile attachment. But then you have for the tank, which is the repulsor. I don't know why they named their vehicles so close together. That is a big complaint I have with like the 9th and 10th edition Space Marines, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, that'd be like the Space Marine equivalent of what Christian's talking about.
Yeah.
And then you have all kinds of like sub classifications with tanks, like heavy tanks, main battle tanks. I've never been a tanker, so I don't know all the details with that.
Tanky, come on.
That is not what tankies are.
Okay. Cool. Well, let's jump into their war gear since we're talking about kind of some of that stuff. The ash wastes of Armageddon are an unyielding trial, a battlefield that pushes even the most hardened warriors to their limits. Inhaling its air unprotected is to invite death, as a corrosive toxin devours the lungs and rots the body from within. I imagine too, like that's a little aggressive. You'd have to go to like the wastes, probably. Maybe if you get to some chemical sludges, it's like that. I'm sure lots of places in the hive you can catch some air, though. That's not. You can take that mask off some places. Yet the Armageddon Steel Legion endures, standing steadfast against the hostile conditions with unmatched discipline and relentless determination. Every guardsman of the Steel Legion is equipped with specialized war gear designed to weather these poisonous environments. Toxic-resistant trench coats, gloves, and visors form the first line of defense. But the true lifeline of these soldiers is the iconic Armageddon pattern rebreather. This resilient apparatus filters out the deadliest toxins, granting the Steel Legion the ability to wage war in places where survival is otherwise impossible. For senior officers, their rebreathers are shaped into grinning skull masks, a grim testament to the Legion's relentless spirit. I wonder, when they're looking at Kriegsmen and they both fucking did the skull on it. Like they're like, I fucking did that first. I hate that they do that too. Who says they do it first and hates the other people more? The vehicles of the Steel Legion are equally prepared, sealed airtight to protect their passengers and withstand the acidic atmosphere of Armageddon. Even their sacred banners, symbols of honor adorned with orc kill markers and trophies, are treated with durable coating to resist the corrosive decay of the ash waste. The Steel Legion's attention to every detail reflects their unshakable commitment to preserving their strength and legacy. The standard Armageddon Steel Legion Guardsman outfit is an array of reliable and practical gear to face any challenge with precision and resilience. The M36 pattern lasgun, a dependable weapon found throughout the Imperium. It is the backbone of the Steel Legion's firepower. Toxic-resistant trench coat, chemically treated to shield troopers from the most toxic environments. Flak armor. Lightweight and durable, this armor reflects shrapnel and small arms fire, allowing soldiers to stay mobile and effective. Mono knife. A versatile blade with a superfine edge equally effective as a bayonet tool. Grenades and tactical gear. Frag grenades, smoke grenades, photon flash grenades, and other essentials provide the Steel Legion with adaptability and an edge in combat. Every guardsman carries not only weapons, but also the tools of survival. Ration packs, grooming kits, the Imperial infantryman's uplifting primer, a guide instilling unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. Through grit, discipline, and relentless resolve, the Armageddon Steel Legion wages war where others would falter, proving themselves unbreakable in the face of the Imperium's darkest challenges. Yeah, very cool.
Quick note for all of you book collectors: I apparently heard through the grapevine that they're doing a reprint of the uplifting Guardsman's primer. So
yeah,
cool.
Just yeah.
Good luck getting it on day one.
That was all.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's cool too. I'd imagine all this gear that these guys have is made in their hives as well. So it's kind of another cool little facet of this regiment that everything they have is pretty much from this planet. And then it's either brand new or they've been using it, till they die type, or they need a replacement. Some regiments pass their stuff on, but this is like factory fresh stuff. Lots of gear. Their preferred weapons. The Armageddon Steel Legion exemplifies disciplined firepower and tactical precision, favoring weapons and vehicles tailored for prolonged engagements in armored warfare. Grenade launchers and missile launchers form the backbone of their infantry range capabilities, offering adaptability against a wide range of threats. I love the sound grenades make when you shoot them. Pa-boom! I've never seen it in real life, but I've heard some. It sounds fun, on video games at least.
Oh, good old grenade launchers. But with the Steel Legion being known for their mechanized infantry, let's talk about their armory. The Steel Legion regiments are renowned as elite mechanized infantry, their ranks bolstered by Armageddon's vast production of armored fighting vehicles, particularly Chimera APCs. Chimeras spearhead their rapid offensives, crashing through enemy lines with relentless precision before deploying their disciplined infantry to secure the ground and deliver the killing blow. On the battlefield, Leman Russ battle tanks dominate their armored columns, the Vanquisher variants serving as command vehicles to spearhead offensives or anchor defensive lines. Their forces also include the powerful Leman Russ Executioners, providing devastating plasma-based firepower when needed. The Steel Legion's artillery arsenal is equally formidable, relying on basilisks, bombards, and manticores to deliver relentless bombardments and shatter enemy formations. For truly apocalyptic engagements, they field super heavy tanks like the Baneblade and Shadow Sword, unleashing unparalleled destruction upon their foes with unflinching resolve. Every unit reflects the Legion's relentless commitment to breaking the enemy's will and securing victory no matter the cost.
And there is the final piece of the puzzle that I would like to present to you boys to really give the Armageddon Steel Legion that final little psow, and that's the Baneblade tanks that they bring. And I know, lots of regiments have them, but once again, I feel like it's just such a cool picture of these Chimera tanks zipping around, followed by Bane blades, and they're all just factory fresh.
It even has a new leather seat smell.
Exactly. New tanks smell perfect. Yeah, I love it, man. Like I just the tanks are sweet, and you just get these armored columns. I think it's really neat. I would want a tank still. After reading these episode notes, I still do want a tank.
Okay. Well, Jacob mentioned this way earlier in the chat, but you can actually rent one in Las Vegas. So come on
Okay,
down to
there
Las
we go.
Vegas. Maybe the next LBO we
America!
can raid the nearest GW.
Fuck yeah. All right. Well,
Christian,
next
you're
we'll
muted.
jump to.
I was just saying we're gonna
Next
ram
we'll
a tank
jump
into
to.
the store.
Yeah. Run over the rhino that they have out front of their store. Run
Yeah.
that over with your tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next little categories we have, we're really going to glance over. There's a lot more that we could be talking about, but I feel like, yeah, they either fall into that man needs an episode or that battle needs an episode, or this is just a little teaser. So those are notable regiments, notable legionnaires, and notable battles. But I'm just going to tell you about a couple. So the first regiment I'm going to tell you about is the 339th, and this was during the Third War for Armageddon, and it earned the title the Ironheads because during the battle for the tanks forges of Hive Tempestura during the war, so massive was the factory that the entire tank battle was fought within it. At one point, the 339th held the line, a whole tank battle inside this tank factory. Held the line by a long conveyor belt against the Orc attack, and the assembly line continued to function despite the pitched battle that took place around it. At the height of the battle, the entire regiment was mounted in chimeras that had just rolled off the assembly line. The 339th then made a mechanized assault along the length of the factory, smashing through the Orcs. Fucking tight.
Absolutely
Factory
hilarious.
fresh smashing.
Yeah, just like literally coming off
Only
the line
in
right into the
40K.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Is the gun
though-
ready? Okay. Do you see that orc horde across the hall? I don't want to. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These weapons need testing on those Orcs.
Fun fact: the Boeing manufacturing center, they have like a massive hangar, and that's so big that it has its own internal weather system inside. Like it creates clouds.
That's crazy.
Inside. Yeah, it's big.
Wow.
Apparently, like atmospherics is a thing for like warehouses that get to a certain size. Like we're starting to build bigger and bigger warehouses. Obviously not big enough to host
that.
Yeah, not big enough to host entire tank battles, of course, but we're getting there. We're working on it.
While they're still building tanks, yeah,
Almost
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, that'd be a sick battle.
So notable legionnaire that if you go to Wikia, Lexicanum, if you pick up codexes, you'll find a bunch of cool battles. And I figured since we talked a lot about the Armageddon battles themselves, I don't want to talk anymore about those ones. But yeah, let's go to Legionnaires and Commissar Yarrick. And this is definitely the most well-known character from Armageddon. And like he's galaxy known to be pretty cool, which is quite the situation, really.
Yeah,
to be that level of famous. Yeah. A couple things about him that makes him cool beyond what we kind of told you already was he was mortally wounded in one battle and he lost an arm. And then he decided, you know what? This ain't no mortal wound. It's just a flesh wound. And killed the orc, survived the loss of an arm, and then strapped an orc arm onto his arm. So now he's got a power claw. Not a bad place to be, really. He also lost an eye at one point, and Gerald, you call him Old Bale Eye, and because this man, he has no need
Mm-hmm.
to read books anymore. He decided instead of reading bionics, he got laser bionics put in. So now he can shoot a little laser out of his eye and burn orcs up. And he's started this little rumor that even if you look at him, your head will explode. So he's pretty cool that way.
Yeah. I wonder how much of the orcs' power of belief actually causes that.
Doesn't work like that.
Come on, the head just pops ever so much more satisfyingly. There's just a little bit more juices to it.
Right.
Yeah. And the final little noteworthy thing we'll talk about is the battle, and we're gonna jump all the way over to the Spineward Front and the Severan Dominant. We did a little 3-part episode on them that was pretty interesting, so it's cool to see these guys make it all the way over there. And in this, Lord Marshal Ghazghkull has deployed Armageddon Steel Legion regiments into only a handful of war zones in the Spineward Front, in the Periphery subsector, in the Calexis sector, in the Segmentum Obscurus. Do you remember, Christian, that one battle that was, or that one planet that was basically like Trench World, and it was constantly being flipped sides? And
yeah,
I imagine these guys would be right at home there.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, APCs are typically mobile fighting, not necessarily trenches, but you would want, like, the whole reason tracked vehicles were invented was to drive over trenches. So yeah, they could be the mobile force in a trench environment.
Yeah.
Cool.
All
right.
Yeah, so that's kind of a good little overview of them. Like I said, I kind of liked it. I like the population and the planet. It's one of those things where when you picture Armageddon, it seems like an awful place. And even if you know anything about 40K, it seems like an awful place. But for a long time, it was a pretty good world and made a really kick-ass regiment. It's finely tuned. Everyone kind of works together. And then it has a rough go of it. But I kind of liked it.
Yeah, definitely. As I promised earlier on in the episode, a couple of historical features. But before I get into that, Jacob in the chat has just been dropping facts. First on APCs. So armored personnel carriers typically ferry troops to battle and then pull back. IFVs carry troops to battle. Armored fighting vehicles carry troops to battle and stay with them to provide heavy support. Tanks don't carry troops and are armed to take on other heavy armor. So that's a good summary. And then he also mentioned that the Death Corps of Krieg were originally a different paint scheme for the Steel Legion models. So kind of back where we were talking about how you can paint your regiments in different color schemes. Like typically in a codex, you'll see a bunch of alternatives that GW will put in there if you want to paint your guys a little different. So that's an interesting fact I didn't know before. Like the Death Krieg were so popular that they kind of spawned into their own regiment. Obviously not in lore. The Krieg don't come from the Steel Legion, but like outside in the real world, like I guess that color scheme and everything was so popular.
Yeah, very cool. The other thing that he said was Armageddon produces their own pattern Basilisk and Medusa with fully enclosed armored cab for the crew. Fort World sold models for them. Yeah, awesome, man. Like once again, like they just make all these different vehicles and tanks and have their own patterns and stuff. And they've been doing it for 10,000 years and have become a very efficient planet at it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even like some of their vehicles, like being more heavily armored, like the Medusa doesn't typically have a covered crew compartment. Like your guys are just exposed out there. So they're like, hey, let's encase these guys in armor so they don't get killed.
Yeah, like it's a very different vibe than Kriegsmen, where Kriegsmen, they're kamikaze crazy people, where these guys are like, they're not just throwing their lives away. They will do it. They will die to the last, but it's got to be for a purpose. Like,
yeah, they're a little more strategic, which actually fits nicely into my little history rant. I often do hear people like confuse Steel Legion and Kriegers, and now knowing that history actually does make sense about like how they came about. But the Kriegers really kind of embody World War I, whereas the Steel Legion are very much more World War II in theme and style, and specifically they embody kind of like the Germanic fighting style of the Panzer Grenadier. So that's kind of like their armored infant. Like they kind of, I don't know if they invented, but they really modernized the battlefield with that kind of tactic of using like armored personnel carriers and ferrying your troops in and developing motorized and later mechanized infantry. The
Crazy.
difference being like motorized being like trucks and like light or non-armored vehicles, and then like mechanized being like now armored vehicles.
Yeah.
So like typically a lot of people know the I forget the term that they use. Sorry, my German's not the greatest. Mark, you should chime in here.
The Panzerhausen.
Sure. No, the rushing tactic that they use, right? Like really they moved very quickly, especially in the beginning of World War II. There's a word for it, and the word is completely escaping me right now.
Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, Blitzkrieg, thank you. Yeah. Like fast war, which exactly goes hand in hand with that use of vehicles, right, to move your troops quickly and efficiently. Other things too that make it like very close is like even their helmets are very similar to the Fallschirmjäger, which were like the German paratroopers. Like if you look at their helmets and the Steel Legion helmets are very, very similar. And then even the color scheme. I've heard people try to compare them to the Soviets, especially with that. Like they do use tanks a lot, but they definitely come off very much more German to me. And even
Yeah, like they're quality tanks that these guys are making. You know, this is like a vital, prominent world.
Yeah, and even their names and stuff. A lot of them, some are obviously kind of made up, but some of them very much come off as very German. So, yeah, very much like
that whole German World War. That to that whole German World War II vibe too. If you look at some of the older models, I got one pulled up now. I can't remember which edition. It's one of the older editions when they actually had multiple different regiments besides just Catachan and Cadians. But if you look on one of the Armageddon shoulder pads, it unfortunately has the Schutzstaffel Lightning Bolt S, which for anybody that knows history and modern history, that can be very problematic for a lot of reasons.
Less than ideal.
So
yeah. I did see
send me that picture.
Yeah, but this was yeah, I can send it to you. This was back when like GW was like really on the nose with, hey, the Imperium are not actually the good guys, but now that that satire is kind of lost on a more modern lore. I don't know what you want to call it, but yeah, let me send you that picture.
Yeah.
I believe there was also actually like a British fascist movement that used that lightning bolt symbol too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean it's from the 80s or whatever, when it was more on the nose with where they're drawing their inspirations from, and now like the Imperium is much more sanitized.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I wish James was here because I'd love that discussion with James about the Imperium and being the good guys or not. But which actually I've come around. I used to not get what he was saying, and we've had some discussion since then. We should probably do a whole episode on that. Maybe we'll get James back on the show and discuss the nuances.
Yeah. I'm looking at that miniature, Gerald, and that symbol. Are we sure that's not just like a little lightning bolt campaign badge? Like,
I mean, depending on how you probably paint it, you could feasibly make it look like it. But I know a lot of people pointed that out, and it says it looks very similar to the SS.
Sure, and given the model that it's painted on, sure. I always picture the Ultramarine, and they have a little like lightning bolt campaign badge thing that they put on their knee. But that's a little different.
Jacob in the chat there is saying the biggest Soviet-Russian influence is the mass production of armor, just cranking out mass numbers. Yeah, and that's kind of what other people are saying. And they were saying the color schemes too. The Soviets did have that kind of like khaki, mustardy color uniforms, but so did the Fallschirmjäger, which look a lot more like these guys, or at least a subset of Fallschirmjäger had that color pattern. I can't remember where. And then the British Order of Fascists had that. Also, Jacob was mentioning the British Order of Fascists had that very similar logo. So, Jacob, you better get on the chat or get in this episode. You've been dropping lots of facts. You must have been around for quite a while in the hobby.
Impart us with more of your
just
knowledge,
dropped the
please.
link out there, so you can click on that link. And yeah, we're ready for calling guests now. Okay, so up first we got Jax. That's quick. We'll have you up first if you're ready. Just give him a second to settle in, it looks like. Yeah, I like Steel Legion, man. I just picture Bane Blades and tanks in the desert just running donuts around and shooting their little side guns. Yeah. Fucking tight.
I like their APC tactics and stuff, right? Where, like, again, that's a very modern way of fighting. And it's cool to see the Imperium do implement modern tactics. They're not all backwards. They're not just dealing with, like, literal cavalry or trench warfare. They do have mobile, mechanized, and armored infantry units. Yeah.
Okay, well, Jax's camera is kind of messed up, it seems. Or give me a nod if you're good, Jax. All right. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Yeah, doing very good. Very nice. You know, these aren't my favorite regiments, but I definitely liked them a lot more, and I kind of learned to distinguish them from the Kriegsmen. How do you feel about these guys?
I do like Krieg more, but the important part is that after everything, Armageddon stands straighter than Cadia.
Yeah,
Rounder,
still
you
a
mean.
planet. Sure, it's a demon world now, but yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how many of these it's crazy how many of these planets are now just messed up, or, you know, Cadia has been destroyed now. Armageddon is essentially a destroyed planet. Like, there's a bunch that are just really not looking so good in 40K realm.
Yeah. Armageddon's had a rough time of it.
Yeah, do you think, and I don't think this is it, but we could maybe daydream for a second, this was GW's way of kind of saying we're never making a model line for these guys. You know, for a while they did have a miniature line, and then they got rid of it, and now this is like, okay, we've destroyed the planet, we're not making miniatures, don't ask. The planet, it's not there anymore.
Yeah. RIP. I mean, you can always bash them as Kriegers, but still, it's like the charm of having my crane soldiers that were gang guys is all the whole mystique is all gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they destroyed Cadia, yet they're still the face of the Imperial Guard, so there's still hope, maybe.
That kind of irks me a little bit, to be honest.
What did?
Just the fact that the Cadians are still the face of the Imperial Guard.
Yeah, they should have changed it to Krieg. Should be.
Krieg?
But no, we have to live in mediocrity.
Cadians just won't die. In fact, they'll come back for Cadia too.
Yeah. What other thoughts you have there, Jax?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say Angron, orcs, demons, the whole shebang.
Yeah, Angron shows up on this planet like basically twice. Like he almost showed up again in the 4th Armageddon War. It's not good. It's not a good look for a planet.
Yeah,
why do the demons keep coming?
What's next? It's like is Abaddon gonna like turn his head slowly towards Armageddon and like smile and be like, "You're next."
Every time.
The doorstep to Terra, so he's
Yeah.
got to come here eventually.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll let you go there, Jackson. We'll get the next little guy on.
Curse.
Peace.
He would. He
Second
would.
Too late.
He would. I know. I wasn't quick enough on the boot. All right, Lucius, you're up next. Looks like you're ready. Hey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, man, you're tripping me out with your rocking on that chair there.
I'll hold still, trying to keep the baby asleep. I actually just had a thought on what you were saying, Christian, with Angron and the orcs coming back. If you think about it, of a bunch of orcs died. There was tons of bloodshed in battle. Khorne's going to be happy. Send Angron in to enjoy that. Well, the orcs, there's a big fight going on. This is going to be great. Let's send the orcs in. It's just going to kind of that self-perpetuating cycle of orcs enjoy the fight, Khorne enjoys the fight. They're both going to keep coming back.
Yeah, that does make sense. Definitely, like creates almost like a perfect storm of problems.
Yeah. I wonder too if, like, since this is such a famous planet across the Imperium, that if even that level of fame help feeds the warp energy that happens because of the planet, you know. Oh, I just heard Armageddon lost another hive, and that little ripple of fear and terror throughout the galaxy kind of also gets fed on, you know.
Oh yeah. I've always just found the Armageddon Steel Legion cool. We definitely all know the reference GW is going for with their overall kind of look and design, but it's nice to see that mechanized side of the Imperial Guard, because let's face it, a lot of people like the Imperial Guard because they have tanks, and a lot of tanks. So a regiment that is even more a lot of tanks is just going to be cooler. And it's that nice mix of, I can have my Armageddon Steel Legion in their tanks right next to Attilan Rough Riders, and it can still make sense. I still get the fun of it, but I get to throw more tanks of all sizes in.
And that is what we need, more tanks.
Yeah, I don't think, because I was saying that Forge World had their Armageddon pattern basilisks and stuff. It's sad to think I don't think we're ever going to get more Armageddon models. Just I don't see GW making that monetary decision now, which it's just sad. But
you know what though, like it's one of those things that GW might not make it, but there's so many good third-party ones that make them intentionally. Like War Games exclusive, I think makes a great one. But also with technology increasing, like Games Workshop is going to have to get on the 3D printing kind of bandwagon here. They're going to have to adapt, which means maybe they'll be able to kind of make more. You know, like the big problem is you have to make a mold. So that's why you can't have all these different model ranges. You can't have those old Armageddon Steel Legion guys because the molds have broke. But if they switch to fucking 3D printing, we could have all this stuff super quick.
Even just do them as an upgrade sprue to the new
Sure.
My mind is blanking, the new Death Corps. Different helmets.
But with 3D printing though, like you don't need to worry about doing that because you don't have to worry about keeping molds. You just keep your files and that's that. So you don't need to worry about trying to tap it onto something else because you have the tech to just make it different, man.
Yeah, you know that there's a whole debate.
I mean, and even when there aren't any
there's a whole
even
debate
when there
around, like,
really aren't any kind of official models, like
Go
darn
ahead.
it, internet lag. Sorry.
Go ahead.
My internet has been
Let's
crappy
go.
all night. I apologize to everybody. So kit bashing is alive and well. That is what I'm trying to say. Okay, Christian, you can go.
There is a whole like debate around like the 3D print scene and like a whole movement of like, oh, this is gonna be the death of GW. Obviously, we haven't seen that. They've had the most profitable year yet. The technology maybe just isn't quite there yet for the common consumer. But that being said, yeah, Mark, there's tons of third parties that are pumping out lots of great alternatives. But also, I could totally see GW dropping in upgrade sprue for sure. And it would be kind of funny because if the Krieger spawned off the Steel Legion initially, it'd be funny that in the future it's kind of retrospective.
How the tables have turned.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's sad of seeing, like, because there was a codex. It wasn't just for Armageddon Steel Legion, if I remember right. It was the entire Armageddon codex with like the battles
like
for
Blood
Armageddon.
Angels in there and Speed Freaks are in there. Yeah.
And we went from this having a codex to it's barely even talked about. It's the same thing as a guard player. Just sad to see us getting reduced down to you basically got 3 regiments and be happy you got 3. But
yeah.
as long as we can keep kit bashing, we keep them going. But as long as we can kit bash, we can keep them alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what GW's long-term plans are. They might bring back more regiments. I wouldn't hold my breath on it, but I was surprised they brought Kriegers back, to be honest with you, as like a full army
Yeah.
box. I thought you were just gonna get the one box and that's it. So
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that's like a sign of how they're doing it. They do a little kill team, see how it sells, and then maybe they do a bigger battle force. But that seems like a lot of time and commitment.
One thing you guys mentioned in the episode too was the Armageddon Orc Hunters, which is, again, basically, if you look at the old models, they were Catachans painted up. They're an interesting one just because they're still Armageddon Steel Legion, but they're basically the Catachan version. They don't deal with armor. They paint themselves green and actually like understand the orc language and culture and use that against the orcs.
I actually don't believe they're part of the Steel Legion. I think they're their own regiment, technically.
Yeah.
Which is, like, it goes back to that like worlds and like the naming of a regiment, and then regiments actually being both like the whole body and also being a subset of a regiment. Like there's regiments within regiments. But I do believe that they are their own distinct
unit.
Yeah,
I misspoke on that.
Yeah. But that just means they're
and Armageddon 2 is a whole yeah. I'm just Googling pictures right now and they're pretty cool. Pretty cool how they've done it. I like it.
The Orc Hunters.
Yeah, I never heard of them until you mentioned it. So cool. Well, any other thoughts on them or
nothing too much. Nope, just good to see him getting covered.
Yeah, way better choice than anyone who wanted a Legion drop troopers done and covered. That'd be something else.
But... We'll ignore that I voted for the Legions.
I did too.
Well,
this is Democracy Manifest.
This is Dictatorship Manifest, boys. This is...
What was my crime? Enjoying a succulent Chinese meal.
Cool. Well, thanks, Lucius.
No problem. Thank you.
Cool. Now it's just the three of us again. Okay, so at the start of this, let's say 1 to 10. Where's your little scale for them?
Man, they're still pretty generic to me. And the fact that they can be so confused with Kriegers.
I'll kill you.
But that being said, like I said, the whole armored combined arms thing, I'll give them points for that. I do like when 40K sometimes does some modern warfare mixed in with like the traditional, older styles of warfare. So, they're definitely above some regiment, like pretty middle of the road, like maybe a 6 or 7 on the Christian scale, which isn't bad. It's not bad.
Okay,
I'm not criticizing them, but they're not
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not buying a model anytime soon.
Yeah, I know. Like,
which means Gerald has to buy 2 armies.
Don't even get me started because I got spreadsheets for like 4 different armies planned. Don't go there.
Okay, well, where was your scale? Yeah.
I mean, they already beat out like Cadians and Catachans for me because, like Christian said, they're sort of kind of like in the middle, but like, I don't know, they have that aesthetic drip, we'll call it, that I like versus Cadians or Catachans. So I'd say on like a Gerald scale, they're probably like a solid 7, maybe 8. So.
Oh, that's getting up there.
Yeah. Okay, nice.
You know what I think it is actually for me? I was just thinking about it. I think it's the jackets. I think I like flak vests. I like armor on my infantry, and I think it's a lack of body armor that makes me less enthusiastic. I totally think that's it. Here's the thing: I'm an infantry guy. I like infantry stuff.
Well,
I've never been big into tanks, which has always been a conflict with me and my father. But and like I like the guard models for the infantry, which is weird because everyone like I forget who mentioned it, is that like people get into guard for the tanks. But Yeah, you'd think I'd be
Yeah.
a Krieger, but they're all right
Not
too.
quite.
Not quite there.
Hmm.
Jax
Yeah,
asks,
okay.
do you like gas masks though? Not wearing one. If you've ever had to wear one, they're not fun. But yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
I mean, I get grumpy when I have to wear like a surgical respirator, so you won't catch me wearing a gas mask. Looks cool, but
He would rather die.
Let me breathe in that sarin gas.
All right. Well, that's an episode of Lorehammer. I hope everyone else out there liked them. Maybe you learned a little bit more. There's a couple neat things about them. They definitely are very unlucky, but have been able to fight it off every time. And now they're on their fourth big battle. And let's see where it takes it. Do they get sucked into the very abyss of hell, or are they able to battle their way out? Hard to say. But I like them. I kind of just liked... I like that strong theme where I can very clearly make a tabletop army. Like if I'm doing Legion drop troopers, I'm very clearly just doing Valkyries and, like same with this, like there's a very clear theme and direction I can go when building
tanks and chimeras.
Yeah, just kind of spoke to me.
Yeah. And that's fair.
All
like
right.
I'm not criticizing you if you like them. I feel like there's more other interesting regiments.
Sure.
There are a lot of
like
there's
nothing bizarre about this regiment. Like there's nothing like, oh yeah, and once a year they like to do this weird blood ritual. There's nothing too eccentric about them in that manner. That can be nice too.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
Cool. All right. The final things we'll say is we'll just get down to the end of the episode. Shout out to a new Patreon member, Grant. Thank you so much for donating. If you guys want to donate, you can just go to Patreon, throw us a couple bucks. You get an ad-free version. You get to see our faces. There's a couple different things you can get on there. So go check out the Lorehammer Patreon. And if you want to listen to other things I've done, go listen to Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. It's a podcast where I read homebrew lore written by none other than you, the listener. So go check out Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast.
Yeah, and if you like me or Jordan, who's on other episodes, come check out, and you like Star Wars, come check out the Star Lores with an L. Like Lorehammer, but Star Wars lore. And we just kind of dissect the Star Wars universe. Typically we stick to Star Wars Legends, if that means anything to you. It's just like the pre-Disney quote unquote canon. It's kind of our main focus, and we definitely do like comparing, contrasting, lots of historical references and stuff in there. So come check us out.
And if for whatever reason you like hearing my voice, come on and check out the Grimlore podcast, where my co-host Ray and I talk about Warhammer Fantasy and and really any other grimdark setting that we care to talk about. But we are most like our bread and butter is Warhammer Fantasy and some Age of Sigmar, which which for those listeners, I know you've probably heard us talk crap about Age of Sigmar for a while. I promise you, we will do more Age of Sigmar episodes. There is a lot of interesting things about it. We just have a lot of
You're losing listeners if you say
Please
that.
do not ask Rayway about the end times.
Yeah, please, everyone,
Trench
leave
Crusade
all the
wins,
autists
Jax.
alone.
Sometime in the future,
Don't
check
poke
out
them.
Grimlore.
Yeah, cool. Well, we will see you guys all on the next episode of Lorehammer. I think the next episode we are doing a Chaos Imperial Guard regiment. So the Blood Pact and the Sons of Sect we're going to cover. So that's going to be pretty cool to learn about them.
See, now we're getting interesting. Now I'm getting behind those regiments.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you happen to be on those episodes, so we'll see your comparison take of if you want to cut off a hand and staple it to your torso and become a Son of Sec, or an Armageddon Steel Legionnaire.
All right.
Find out on the next episode of Lorehammer.